Hi, everyone, and welcome to DD Talks, the Art of Specialty Lenses. I'm your host, Dee Reyes. We have a very special guest today. His name is Dr. John Gellis, a dear friend of mine. John, welcome. Now, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you, Dee Dee. Well, Dee Dee and I actually go back quite a bit here. Gosh, I think the first time I met you was CLSA all those years ago now. But yeah, so I work up in Teaneck, New Jersey, the Cornea and Laser Eye Institute and the CLEI Center for Keratoconus, and I do exclusively specialty contact lenses for individuals with irregular corneas and ocular surface disease, and good amount of research and development here.
Perfect. So I just want to ask you a few questions. We really try to focus on education and sharing our knowledge, as well as try to tie this stuff into the art. And we all tend to be artists when we do what we do, but a lot of us are artists outside of that as well. So I kind of want to first get a little bit of insight into your talent for contact lenses, and then I want to get into some of your other talents as well. So for you, what do you feel like is the most innovative scleral technique or design change that you've seen in the last few years, and how has that impacted the industry?
Well, I think really in scleral lenses, the thing that has become so interesting, and it's not like we haven't had this in GP fitting before, but the ability to bring in surfaces and build a lens to a three-dimensional geometry. And that is really something that I think will be the future of scleral contact lens fitting. Or, when we get to these points, not just scleral lens fitting, but also contact lens fitting, scleral and contact lens fitting. But yeah, when we look at this, I really see that as being one of the bigger innovations. Now, some of it is, reapplying old things. Like if we look at, iPrint Pro, for instance, and taking an impression, that harkens back to the birth of contact lenses.
Right.
And if we look at, these profilometers, a lot of them run on raster stereography, which is going back to the 90s and the early PAR-X topographer.
Right.
So, it's kind of the old is new again in the newer application of it. And it's just become so fascinating, looking at these sorts of applications and the cool things that you can do. And then, on top of that, really coming into fruition are the abilities to do higher order aberration control in a clinic. We've read about this for so long, and now it's real.
Now you got it in your hands.
Yeah, it's so cool, and it just makes you so interested in what's going to happen next.
Right, and I think that's a lot of where our passion comes from, is what can we do and where are we going to go from here?
Yeah.
So how do you see scleral lenses and specialty lens fitting in general growing in the future? I mean, are we going to see more practitioners? Are we going to see, what do you feel like we're going toward?
That is a very, very interesting question. I got some wild ideas that I don't share with anybody.
Imagine that.
I got some ideas though that I think are more realistic, if you will. I think what you're going to see with scleral lenses specifically is that more and more practitioners are going to start to become comfortable with these. But that really comes, as the generations start going through, right? I think kind of a lot of this is set, guys who have their practices all set up, and you focus on one thing, and incorporating another thing kind of falls by the wayside. Like for me, for instance, like I'm probably never going to pick up a retina interest all of a sudden, just like a retina guy will probably never pick up a scleral lens interest all of a sudden. But I do see that as practitioners keep graduating from the schools and they start learning these things, and there's so much joy that comes out of specialty lens fitting, unlike a lot of other parts of eye care where it's monitoring and kind of a good day is they didn't get worse. there's a lot of joy in this. So I think a lot of people will start to, naturally sort of gravitate towards these areas. And I think by that, you'll start, seeing slow and steady growth in that area. And, a lot of it, as we start getting into these newer technologies, I think it's going to become both easier and more complex
Mhm.
because you're going to have, a better start point, but then it becomes much more complex in how you modify that start point, right? Like modifying a curve that covers, 360 degrees around that lens, I got an idea what that's going to do. But if I got to modify, you know, 500 polygons that make up a mesh that creates the edge, that's a lot less defined in the way that you manipulate that. And that's where this really becomes art, which is a really interesting thing, because you've now taken this really scientific way, and now all of a sudden it's, well, I have to use my creativity to kind of come up with the solution from there. So
Right.
it's a very interesting.
And that's where those artistic talents tend to come in as well. It's like, okay, if I do this, what about that? And yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
exactly. And a lot of times I know in my history and it's the passion comes through, but there's also that one case that you never forget, the one that addicted you to what you do. And we've all got them, and there are some of us have several.
Oh
And
my
it's the golf analogy where it's like, I'm really awful at golf, and then you have a great shot, and it's like, I love golf. It's that
Exactly.
same analogy.
Oh my God, it's so true.
So
I'm,
what
I'm
would
laughing
be
so hard at that because I'm literally looking at a stack of charts right next to me that I've been contemplating on. How am I going to fix this? So it's so real, and that's the thing about it too. For you and me, we've done this for some time, and it's there's still challenges,
Oh, absolutely. And bouncing stuff off of somebody else sometimes,
right?
just getting another opinion or another thought process. And I think that's what's great about our industry is we have people that we can do that with. We have friends we can do it with. We have consultants we can do it with. We have everybody that we can lean on
Yeah.
and use that experience.
Yeah. And like, I can't count the number of times I've called you and been like, Dee Dee, I like inexplicably, I have no idea what to do with this. What do I do? Like
Like,
I've run out of ideas. What do you think?
exactly. And that's the great part about being in this industry. So what would be your best advice for a contact lens fitter today that's just really getting started?
Ooh, okay. How much time do we have? No, okay. The single best piece of advice that I have is to learn the diseases that you're gonna be fitting these contact lenses for. Without a in-depth understanding of those disease states, and then understanding what complications you can induce with the lens, um, that knowledge will keep you out of so much trouble. And the thing that's so interesting about scleral lenses in comparison to like corneal gas permeable lenses is you can have a really huge problem with a scleral lens, and that patient is going to be pretty comfortable,
Yeah.
whereas a corneal gas perm, if you weren't fitting it well, you heard about it. That patient was back in your
Right away.
so so there. And it's not to say that long-term complications are not possible with corneal gas perms. We all know they are, but I've had a few patients that disappeared from follow-up, or I let something go that I was like, it doesn't look great, but it's fine. I'll see them in 6 months, and we'll just, we'll address it then, right?
Right.
Yeah, so understanding the underlying disease, though, is extremely important too, because you understand when that individual needs to go back, when that's, something that's out of your hand, and understanding how these patients are extremely complex in some of the applications, right? I'm not just dealing with, cornea specialists and, ophthalmologists. I'm dealing with glaucoma. I'm dealing with uveitis. I'm dealing with, immunology. And then even beyond that, I'm dealing with rheumatology and oncology and all these other sorts of, specialties. So it's the cascade of this and understanding, well, this guy's got ocular graft versus host, but they also need to see, their ocular immunology specialist to control, some of the inflammatory that's going along with this. But then they also need to see their oncologist as well.
Right.
So it's understanding those details of it that I think are so important, because the rest of it is really just understanding geometries.
Mechanics.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of the way that, things respond, you lift this comes down, um, those sorts of things. But that's all, that's experience,
Right.
whereas in a lot of times experience is not going to bite you on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you could really cause a mess, if you ignore something that's, needs to be addressed.
Well, and two, there's a difference between acceptable and perfect. And I know as fitters, we strive for perfection, but you're not dealing with the perfect surface. So those are some of the things that you have to consider. But the other thing that we consider too is we're dealing with patients, and we're dealing with patients that may not be as educated about their disease as we are.
Absolutely.
And we have to spend time and sharing our knowledge of the disease and what's going on. And I think well-informed patients are a great thing to have in most cases. Sometimes well-informed patients are not. Yeah. But I, that for me, that's one of the biggest things too, is make sure the patient is well-informed and you're understanding everything else that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Dee, in your case, what would you say is like the number one thing that you wish all brand new fitters knew,
Oh, see, I've never thought about that. What I wish every brand new fitter knew was to reach out to somebody. If they get to something they don't know, reach out to somebody that does.
Yes.
That was whenever I first started fitting, I asked questions of everybody or anybody who would talk to me. So I could learn from their experience and watch what happens if I took that into consideration. And sometimes you'll get two different sides of the same post. Like
yes,
you'll get two different things and both of them may work, even though you're dealing with the same issue. It may not be exactly the same, and either thing could work.
Yeah.
And sometimes does.
Yeah. It's so interesting, because that's exactly it. It's having a mentor, or not just a mentor, but mentors,
Mentors, yeah.
guys who have done it before you, where you can go, well, this is the first time I'm seeing it, but I can guarantee you somebody who's been doing this for 10 or 20 years, they've seen this 100 times.
Agree. And I think reaching out to your contact lens consultants, especially the ones that know their designs and know what the materials are going to do and what that design is going to do on the eye that you're seeing, I think is very helpful as well.
Yeah.
I know that's how I started back in the day as well.
Yeah. Awesome.
So what would be, see, how can I ask this? What would be the most important thing or the key point that you would give to a brand new practitioner when it comes to getting their office ready to go into a scleral business or into a specialty lens business?
Got it. First thing that is probably the most important is have the equipment that's necessary to follow the disease that you're fitting. So if you're going to fit mostly keratoconic patients, you must have a corneal topographer at the minimum. You have to, be able to monitor these patients for progression. It's an absolutely vital portion of it. the next portion of that is preparing your staff so they understand how to talk about this. And then preparing yourself for understanding that this is not like a soft contact lens fit where you're going to walk in, throw it on the eye, let it sit for 5 minutes, walk out the door, and write a prescription, and they're done. This is going to take time, and that's okay. Yeah. And that's the other thing about it. Yes, this is going to take chair time. Yes, this is going to take some brain power, but it's something that's very doable, and as long as you give yourself the time that's needed, you're going to be successful with it. And not to get discouraged. I can't tell you the number of people that I've met over the years that have gone, oh yeah, I don't do that, I tried it like 2 or 3 times and it never worked, so I just stopped doing it. Yeah, I didn't do very well my first 2 or 3 times. Like, I'm sure those patients would tell you right now that, well,
the patients that you told, don't ever tell anybody who fit you in this lens.
Right, but that's exactly it. Is it's all it's all about understanding your limitations as well, and saying hey, maybe I'm not going to start on this patient with this post Stevens Johnson patient, or this this ocular cicatricial pemphigoid patient, or whatever. Maybe I'm going to start on this 54 diopter cone.
Yeah, never take a graft as your first patient.
Yeah, exactly. Do something relatively simple.
Yeah. And start with the little things and then move on.
Exactly. Get some wins and then go from there. Exactly. You don't need to go for the guy who's had a three grafts, has two filtering procedures for glaucoma. That's not your first patient. It's choose the easy wins on this, and then really ensuring that you understand how these the time management goes. A lot of practitioners have this misconception that oh, well, I have to pick out the perfect lens out of the set the first time. It's like, no, dude, just pick a lens from the middle of the set, put it on the eye, look at it, and then decide from there. Yeah. Do that quick, make sure that you're in the area that you want to be, and then let it sit. Don't let it sit and then come back and go, oh, I got to take that off and do another. Just do that in a rapid succession and then go from there. But yeah, those are my best tips. And then use your resources. Like Scleral Lens Education Society has amazing webinars. GPLI, amazing webinars. IKA to learn about keratoconus, amazing webinars. You have all of these things at your fingertips, and my gosh, are they helpful?
Yeah, absolutely.
Watch them.
Yeah, watch them.
Yeah.
And ABB's got a few of those too.
There you go.
Just to be aware. Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, is the labs specifically are going to provide great educational content. Like, I cannot overstate how important having good consultation is, but also having a good lab that's going to support you educationally. Like, it's unbelievable. They want to make you successful. They're only successful if you're successful.
That's exactly right.
So they have vested interest in making you good at this.
Absolutely.
So it's that's my spiel. So
your spiel.
Yeah, exactly. Staff ready, you ready. Make the time commitment to be good at it, and don't get discouraged.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Great job. So now I want to get to you, because I happen to know that you are a bit of an artist, or have been for a very long time. And we have a couple of images that I would love for you to give us a little bit of history on first. And a big car guy myself, car gal, I guess, myself. I know that you have a passion for cars and a beautiful eye for curvature. So what I want to do is I want you to kind of tell me a little bit about this red car that you did the image of.
So this is kind of an interesting thing. So these images are actually from high school. I think this might have been my junior or sophomore year in high school. And I'd always done art. My family's, just very artistic, and that could be anything from, my grandmother who used to, just craft anything, she could turn a piece of plywood into, these just monumental, displays out in the yard for holidays, right? And she'd hand paint these little Easter eggs to, just incredible detail and just, incredible stuff like that. So, we kind of grew up in that sort of thing. My dad being a dentist and working in prosthetics and, dental, and, as a prosthodontist, doing bridges and matching teeth and that sort of thing. So, all this sort of stuff kind of, made sense. And when I was young, I did a lot of drawing. This red car, though, was from a AP high school art project, and they had you do a concentration in a thing that you liked. And my concentration was car. I still am just addicted to cars. Like it is a problem. like if I had unlimited money, like I could fill that entire building with vehicles that like, and like some of them are like not like, people would be like, why do you want a Toyota Yaris? And I'm like, have you seen the WRC? Like all these sorts of things where it's like, yeah, well, that Yaris has got 600 horsepower, 4-wheel drive, and can do a 0 to 60 in 1.8 seconds, But anyway, so this red car was so I used to go around with these little disposable cameras, because this was before camera phones and all that. So I'd go around, I'd take photos of all these cars in Southern California, and there are a plethora,
billions,
of really, really nice cars. So I went around, I took photos of just about every exciting car that I could see. And this was actually the side duct on a Ferrari 360 Modena. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, yes. Yeah. And the little fin there. So that's what throws people off, is they go, but what's that little fin? This one had a Hamann body kit on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it had the whole works on it. So this thing was it was gorgeous. And the medium on this was kind of interesting. So we used this kind of interesting chalk for it. And the chalk that I was using, they go, okay, well, if you don't coat it afterwards, it's just gonna spread everywhere, it's smear. So use this finishing compound on it, right? So I put that on there, and the chalk starts to clump, and it ended up with this interesting sort of texture. And I was like, well, that kind of worked out.
Those are called happy mistakes.
Exactly. That was a combination of chalk and chalk charcoal, and I can't remember what the other one was, but there's something else in there that's white that's not either chalk nor charcoal. I think it was actually some sort of oil-based pencil or something. Yeah.
So the ivory colored, or the white one, is that a Porsche?
Yes. Yeah. that is the polarizing 996. So this was that was the one that you're seeing right there was the headlight on if I recall correctly, it was a GT2. From back, it was either a GT2 or it was a turbo 911 from that generation. So it would have been somewhere between year 2000 and 2002. So yeah, it was, oh my god, that's a beautiful car. But that's that headlight design that people were like, it's not round. So, yeah, right. That blobular shape that people just they cringe at. But now God, you can get a deal on those cars these days. I mean, the car market is entirely inflated as of now, but but God, could you get a deal on those compared to, any of the other years, the 997s or, anything else. So yeah, it's a wild time.
Yeah. Well, I can see you have a contact lens passion, and you also have a car passion, and you have an art passion. So, you kind of share all those things. So that is fabulous. John, thank you so much for being on this show. I have so enjoyed talking to you. It has been fabulous. And again, I just want to thank you for being here. I want to thank all of our guests and ABB for supporting us. And the broadcast will be available on the ABB website under practitioner resources /DD Talks. And stay tuned for future episodes of DD Talks, where we support together art and specialty contact lenses.
Thank you so much, Dee Dee.
Thanks, man.